remember, there was a commercial. Charles Barkley, when he was still a player in the NBA, when he was younger, obviously, he approached Nike about doing a commercial where he basically faces the camera and he says, "I am not a role model," right? So they interviewed him recently about this whole thing, and they asked him, like, I don't remember who. I think it was this guy Graham Bensinger. He's like a whatever, this young guy. He interviews a lot of these athletes, and he asked them, he's like, so what was the reaction of, Nike executives when you came to them with this idea? He said, listen, a lot of these people thought I was crazy. A lot of these people said I was going to get a lot of flack for this, right? But we went ahead with it anyway. And then he asked, he's like, so what was the reaction, of most people? He's like, at that time, it was like 1992. 90% of people had a positive reaction. He's like, I realize I can't please everybody. There's always going to be some people that are pissed, like upset at what you say or what you do. But I have to the guy says, I have to speak my truth, right? So it's like it's a very popular thing to say these days. I got to speak my truth, my emes, right? So, and he said in these interviews, Charles Barkley, why did he want to do this commercial? He said that he used to go to speak at high schools all over the country, right? Just excuse me, guys. I want to take a swig of this. He used to go speak at high schools all over the country, and he said that when he went to speak at a predominantly black high school, and he asked the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? 90% of the kids would say, I want to be in the NFL, I want to be in the NBA, or I want to be an entertainer, like a rapper or something like that, right? And then he says, when I used to go to the predominantly white high schools, the kids used to say, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, accountant, this, that, and the other, right? Some professional job. And he was saying that, like, he goes, this is Charles Barkley, an African-American guy. He said, it almost seems to me that these kids in the black community have been brainwashed to believe that they can all be NBA players, NFL, and, and rappers, right? That's the only three professions they could do, and the alternative is, you don't want to know what the alternative is, right? Drugs, gangs, whatever. Not living till you're 21 years old, not surviving past 21, whatever, right? And so he went on to say, he's just like, well, you're not going to make the NBA. He's like, only a few guys every year get drafted into the NBA. What, like 60 guys? And not all those guys even get to play, right? So he's like, 60 people out of think of all the guys, all the people that play basketball, college basketball, on any level, high school basketball, whatever it is, right? Let's say you have 30 teams. On every team there's 12 guys. So you have there's only 360 jobs in that field, right? If you're talking about the NBA, right? Unless you're a guy who's okay with going to play in the what's it called? In the overseas or whatever it is, some amateur league, whatever. So he was basically saying that these kids in these inner cities, these African-American kids, are brainwashed to believe that there's only three professions out there on this planet for them, right? 3 vocations in life. And if they don't make it in those 3 professions, then there's nothing else for them, right? So my friends, now people come and say, well, what do you want these kids to believe? That's the environment they grow up in. It's not their fault. They're underprivileged, they're underfunded, they're under whatever. So my friends, I have 2 answers for you, or one answer that has 2 components, right? So when we came to America in 1987, we lived in Brooklyn. That was our first stop, right? And we lived, at some point, we moved to this neighborhood called Gravesend. We lived, my parents and I, we lived on Avenue Z and Ocean Parkway. So on Avenue Z and Ocean Parkway, there is a high school. Actually, I think it's closer to Neptune Avenue. There's a high school called Lincoln High School, right? So at the time that we were living there, and I remember this distinctly, I remember hearing stories of friends who were older, who were already in high school, right? I was in junior high school. I had a friend who was already in 9th grade, and he was telling me stories of how basically there were 2 main demographics of kids who were in the high school. There were African American kids, and there were Russian-speaking kids, Russian Jews, or just Russian immigrants, right? And it's interesting because, like, at that time, my friend was telling me stories of how Russian kids used to actually get beat up by the African American kids, right? And then I had friends today telling me that that's not, who went to the high school later on, like in 2000, 2001, 2002, and they told me that, like, Russian kids and African American kids were friends, right? So it's interesting that then how the dynamics changed. I guess because there was enough. I'm guessing because enough Russian kids just kind of stood up for themselves and showed that they were going to be messed with, right? Fine, that's a whole other conversation. So, but from what I knew from this high school, right? What were the results? What were the outcomes? Most of the Russian kids, and this is not the only high school that where I heard these kind of statistics, right? Most of the Russian kids, or most of the non-black kids in the high school, ended up going to college and basically making something out of themselves. And most, not all, but most of the African American kids ended up not, and ended up, being in the situations that I was just describing. Not a good situation. So you guys could say, well, both these groups have the same access to the same school, the same resources, the same lack of this, the same lack of that. So now you have to ask yourself the question: what is the separating? What is the thing that determines, or what is the thing that the X factor that determines that what happens to the Russian kids versus what happens to the African American kids? So I was talking to my friend. She told me, it's something in their respective communities. I don't want to use the word culture, because culture implies already you're talking about people's, so to speak, race or whatever. I'm going to use the word mentality. I'm going to use the word attitude. Or let's use the word mentality. Mentality is more appropriate to use. There's a certain prevailing, and it goes back to what Charles Barkley said, there's a prevailing mentality in the African American community. And it was, I don't know when it started, I don't know when it was instilled, because we know from the 50s and 60s, and we know from even before, Jim Crow, that there were, people in the African American community that were striving for more, that were striving for excellence. I'm not saying that there isn't now, there are, of course. But if you listen to comedian Dave Chappelle, he was talking about, his grandfather or great grandfather was a landowner, and he was he was a very wealthy guy, and then and he says that Jim Crow came along and it stopped all that, and it stopped African Americans from success and whatever it is. But friends, my point is, overall, if you look at all things being equal, right? Two different groups of people in the same situation, in the same access to the same education, whatever it is. Yeah, my friend just said, look what happened to Sebastian Telfair. Exactly. He went to. This is Stephon Marbury's cousin. He was one of the top high school players in the country. He was the top. He committed to go to college, to Louisville, to play for Rick Pitino. At the last minute, he changed his mind. He ended up going to the NBA. He got drafted. He was like a journeyman. He played for 5 or 6 different teams. He ended up playing, I think, overseas after that. And now he's in, then he had troubles with the law, whatever it is, right? So, my friends, all things being equal, two different groups of people have, opportunities. It's like a case study, right? And one outcome is like this, and one outcome is like that. So, it leads me to conclude that, the famous phrase, what is it called? Excuses are like, everybody has them, my friends. Everybody has an excuse, and you want to say, oh, how can you say that? Whatever. My friends, everybody has an excuse. The Jewish people, I think, if you look at history, the Jewish people are probably the most oppressed group of people on the face of the earth. We are. It's undisputable. We have been oppressed by every single diaspora nation for, I can't even say centuries. I could say millennia. And we could go around and we could walk around And we could say we've been oppressed, and we were this, and we were pogrom, and we were burned, and we were this, and we were hung, and we were, what is it called, Inquisition, and expelled, and this, and systemic and systematic oppression, and this, and this, and this, and goes on and on and on and on. And we were living in Arab countries, and we had the Farhud, and we had the expulsion, and we had the Islam, and we had to ride on donkeys that were shorter than this, and then a horse. And my friends, if you look at the history of the Jews who lived in Arab countries, it's right on par with what African Americans experienced in the United States since 400 years ago. Except Jews experienced it for about as long, and they still, despite all that stuff, we rose above it. My friends, do you know why? I'll tell you the reason why. I will tell you the reason why the Jewish people, out of all the people who were persecuted for millennia, rose above. Right after I read this message, mass incarceration for an extended period of time, often wires thought process. My friend, Aretha Rowe. Again, I'm telling you again, the Jewish people have been in Golas. They've been in exile. Been in exile for 2,000 years. And yes, that exile has rewired our thought processes. But you know what it didn't rewire, and I will tell you why. Why we as the Jewish people have been able to rise above all this crap when no one else has. I'm not just talking about African Americans, I'm talking about everybody else. Why? Because we have in our liturgy, in our tradition, we have this thing in our Siddur that we read 2 times a day. Men that daven 3 times a day, we read this 2 times a day. We read about the Exodus of Egypt. Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. We read this 2 times a day, every single day, like clockwork. And we've been doing this for 2,000 years, ad nauseum, reminding ourselves that we left slavery. We left slavery. So what happens? You're talking about rewiring? So while we're in the Gullus, right, and we're imprisoned in the Gullus, and we're burned, and we are, what is it called, pogromed, and we're downtrodden, and we're this, and we're this, and we're this, at the same time, we're reading about Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim, brainwash, Zecher, we left Egypt, we left slavery, we left slavery, we left slavery, we left slavery, it's like on loop. And in our brains, we're like, yeah, we left slavery, we're not slaves, we're not slaves, we're not slaves, we're not slaves, we're not going to be a slave. My friends, so eventually you leave psychological slavery. You know what I'm saying? Train your mind, then your ass will follow. What's that song? Free your mind, then your ass will follow. My friends, pardon my French. So, there was a person in the African American community, his name was Martin Luther King, Jr. And he came along and he's like, you know what? The Jews are onto something, right? Why is this person great? Why is there a holiday named after this person, or commemorated? Because the guy figured out the secret of the Jews. And what he tried to do was he tried to take that secret that we have, which is very simple, I just described it to you guys, and he tried to apply it to his own community. He tried to tell his own community, my friends, I've been to the mountaintop. You know what I'm saying? I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen it. We have to just take ourselves out of psychological slavery, because we've left physical slavery already 200 years ago, or no, 100 years ago at that time. And now we have to take ourselves out of psychological slavery, my friends. And I can tell you guys, this theory checks out. How do I know? Because I know from my own community, Russian Jews, right? A lot of people came to America. They left physical slavery from the Soviet Union, but a lot of people still have a certain element of psychological slavery in certain senses, right? A lot of people are afraid to start businesses. They only want to work for companies. You know, they want to, whatever. You know, I was talking to my grandmother today. She's like, you have to get a, what is it called? A steady, regular, a corporate job, right? You can't, starting your own business is hard. I'm against it. And I'm trying to explain to her, you know, but who do you think owns those corporations? It's a guy like me who took a risk and started a business. But again, in order for the person to understand what I'm saying, they have to leave psychological Mitzrayim, right? So Martin Luther King Jr. understood my community has not left psychological Mitzrayim. So my friends, what happened to him? He got shot. Right? What happened to Malcolm X? He got shot. What happened to any person that tried to take the African American community out of psychological slavery? They weren't able to. So my friends, the African American community has been out of slavery for 150 years. Yes, there's been systematic oppression. There's been systemic oppression. There's police brutality. There's all kinds of stuff. Jim Crow. But I guarantee you, my friends, if the same stuff happened, and it did, to the Jewish people, we would rise above it. And we have. Do you know why? Because of Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim, Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim, Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Like, it's just pounded into our brain. We will not be a slave. We will not be a victim. We will not be a victim. We will not be a victim. I don't care about the burning. I don't care about the pogrom. I don't care about the Khmelnytsky. I don't care about the Holocaust of Hitler. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I'm not going to be a slave. I'm not going to be a slave. I'm not going to be a victim. My friends, anybody who's watching this, African American person, what I just described to you will be the secret of your success and the secret of your liberation. And no matter what happens to you with oppression and suppression, and you're absolutely right. These are external things that are coming at you, and they're hindering you from succeeding. You're absolutely right. But there's a way to overcome it. You know, like, we shall overcome? There's a way to overcome that. You're not going to overcome that by looting. You're not going to overcome that by saying F the police. You're not going to overcome that by throwing, by kneeling down and forcing other people to kneel before you. You're not going to, this is all like immature baby stuff and lashing out and little baby shit, pardon my French. All this behavior. It's all immature, angry lashing out of a baby, of a child, of a 5-year-old little baby, right? That cannot figure out what's the right path or what's the right solution. The secret to your liberation, my friends, the secret is internalizing that you're not a victim, right? That you're not going to be a victim, and internalizing that you have to leave the psychological slavery of, especially for the black men, that you can only be a basketball player, that you can only be an NFL, that you can only be a rapper or an entertainer. You have to leave that slavery. I'm sure you've had people in your community tell you the same thing. I know what I notice as a bystander, that there are people in your community, when they tell you these things, that these people get called Uncle Tom. They get called a token or whatever, a whitey, or I don't know, some name. My friends, I mean, like, I just described to you the secret. I just told you the secret. How did the Jewish people go through more? We went through more oppression than you over 2,000 years. We did. I'm not going to have this argument with you. The Jewish people were more oppressed than blacks over the last 2,000 years. It's a fact. It's a fact. There's no, you cannot out victim us. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here and play the victim, but if you want to play the victim game, which I don't want to, but if you were going to do that, the Jewish people are a bigger victim than you. We are 5 times a bigger victim than you have been. You guys were victims for 400 years, we're victims for 2,000 years, okay? And we're still, some of us in our heads are, stuck in gullus in our heads, right? We have the state of Israel, and there's all these Jews that are like, oh, but whatever, a lot of people are still stuck in gullus in their heads. And even despite that, we succeed. Why? Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Twice a day, every day. You left Egypt. You left Egypt. I mean, my friends, I just gave you the secret, what is it, in the Matrix? I'm not going to say the red pill and the blue pill, because these days the connotation is something else, right? But I'm telling you, my friends, I can show you what the Matrix is, or you could see it for, I can tell you what the Matrix is, or you could see it for yourself. Okay? I just told you what the Matrix is, or you could see it for yourself. You can tell yourself every single day, if you're an African American person, I'm not going to be a victim. Yes, there was oppression. Yes, there was systematic mistreatment. Yes, there is police brutality. Yes, there are all these things. There are all these things. They all exist. They all exist. Really, they all exist. But you really do have a choice. You really do have a choice. You don't live in North Korea. You don't live in the Soviet Union. You are on social media. You have Instagram. You have TikTok. You have Facebook. You have Twitter. You have so many opportunities. You have a choice. You really do have a choice. You don't have to be a basketball player is not the only, all power to if you want to be a basketball player, but that's not the only occupation you can do. NFL is not the only occupation you can do. Rapper is not the only thing you can do. You can do other things and stuff. You have a brain. You're not a dumbass, right? Pardon my French. I'm just very emotional right now. I'm very, you know what I'm saying? Like, Zeche Litziat Mitzrayim. I just gave you the key to your liberation from all of your oppression. Because the Jews did it. We did it. What is that commercial? What was that with Tommy Lasorda? What was that? That diet stuff, the powder. Remember those commercials from the 90s and the 80s? If I can do it, you can do it. Or if we can do it, you can do it, my friends. And don't tell me about white privilege. Don't tell me I'm white. Don't tell me I'm this, I'm that. My friends, my parents came to this country with $300 in their pockets. Nothing but the clothes on the back. We lived in Brooklyn, in a crappy neighborhood in Brooklyn, in little tiny apartments. Nobody gave them money. Okay? They are not the Rockefellers. They are not the Rothschilds. They are not old money. They are not, part of the people that came in the Mayflower. Skull and Bone Society. We are not any of that stuff. You know what I mean? We went from ashy to classy. Just by hard work, busting our ass. My parents came here. It was the beginning of the recession after Reagan. There was a recession here, right? There was President, the first Bush. There was Dinkins, mayor in New York. There was a lot of stuff going on in New York. It wasn't easy. Riding the subways, crime, okay? Tokens. You want to talk about tokens? It was subway tokens before Metro cards, okay? It was before people stealing Metro cards and selling them. Give me a token, man. Give me a quarter, man. There was like the windshield wiper guys on the West Side Highway. I was just talking to my sister. I remember we got kicked out of a lift because the guy's, his app didn't work or something like that. He dropped us off on 33rd and West Side Highway, right? And then it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And my sister was so upset. She's like, oh, how dare you do this, la la la, this is messed up. And I was trying to calm her down. I was trying to tell her, I'm like, dude, my sister's 16 years younger than me. She wasn't here when New York was a different place. And I was telling her, like, dude, you should be thankful that we're not in a taxi right now in the year 1992 being dropped off in the same place. It would not have been a pretty picture. That would have been messed up. Okay? Calm down. We're gonna get another taxi. We're gonna get another Lyft or Uber. Everything will be okay. Like, my friends, it wasn't easy when we came to this country. I don't have white privilege. Please. So step off with that stuff. Please. Like, so, my friends, all things being equal, there are places in this country where different groups of people have the same opportunities, the same lack of opportunities, but there's different outcomes. For whatever reason, right? Again, I'm not going to sit here and do a sociological study. I'm just telling you the facts. So now, again, I just gave you guys this kind of rant. But within that rant, I gave you the secret to the liberation of African Americans in America. That's it. So now the question is, it's all up to you, my friends. It's all up to you. People can sit around, and my Jewish brothers and sisters also can sit around, and they can say, we have to stand up for these people, we have to help them, we have to this, and we have to empathize, and we have to, struggle with them. You're not, you know what you're doing right now? You're not helping anybody. What you're doing is you're enabling people's victimhood. You're saying, well, we were victims, right? And so somebody helped us, or whatever. Actually, it's funny because nobody helped us. You know who helped us? Hashem helped us. We helped ourselves. So now we were victims, so now we have to help the other people who were victims, right? The problem is you're not helping, you're enabling. You're doing what's called enabling. You're marching with people and you want to perpetuate their victimhood. You're not helping, you're enabling. You know? It's like Rambam says, if you really want to help somebody, instead of giving them a fish, you teach them how to fish. You're not right now. What you're doing right now, you're not teaching anybody how to fish. You're giving them fish. You're perpetuating victimhood and perpetuating, this mentality of like, we're going to be constantly suppressed and oppressed, and we just we're entitled to what we get because we were suppressed and systematically, whatever, and that's it. My friends, you're not helping, my Jewish friends, you're not helping anybody with this stuff. You're not helping them. You're not helping black people. I want to help black people, but I actually want to help them. I want them to succeed. I want them to be healthy. I want them to not be upset at anybody. And I just gave you guys the rundown. I gave you guys the secret to how if you want to help African Americans, you're a Jewish person, you want to go march with them and you want to go empathize with them, I'm telling you, my humble advice to you, if you find yourself in a rally with Black Lives Matter, and you probably will, come up to everybody and tell them, hey guys, I want to talk to you guys. I know you were oppressed. I know you guys were, downtrodden and Jim Crow and slavery and beatings and police brutality. I know all this stuff. I agree that it's not right. And you know what? Let me tell you about my people. Let me tell you about what we went through also. And you know how we got out of it? We always told ourselves that we're not slaves. Because it's really a choice. Victim mentality is a choice. Slavery is a choice. Leaving slavery is a choice. These are all choices, my friends. These are all choices. You're not in jail right now. If you're listening to me right now on social media and you're a black person, you're not in jail. Even if you are in jail, you have access to social media, but most likely you're not in jail. And you're not in North Korea. You're not in the Soviet Union. You're not in Venezuela. You're not in Zimbabwe. You're not in Gaza. You're in America. As flawed as it is, you're still in a place where you have a choice. You really do have a choice. Even if you're in the ghetto, a ghetto of the ghetto, you got a choice. You have a choice. That's it, my friends. That's all. That's really the only thing I got to tell you. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, listen, I can't apologize for that. And if you don't want to hear the uncomfortable truth, just like today, I was watching a video of a girl, of an African lady in Washington, D.C., screaming at Black Lives Matter, telling them, guys, if you care about Black Lives Matter, go to, a certain part of D.C. where blacks are killing each other every day. How come you're not riding over there? So a girl comes up to her and she goes, shut up, don't say that, shut up, you're an idiot, shut up. So, my friends, there are people who don't want to hear hard truths about the situation. So, again, that's a choice, right? That's a choice. It's really, really a choice. It's your choice to make. You want to hear the truth and act on it? Again, free your mind and your ass will follow. It's your choice. You don't want to hear the truth? Continue as you were. Continue as you were. And we're just going to have the same rinse repeat situation next time, and there will be a next time, of Black Lives Matter and looting and rioting. And, this time it was Fifth Avenue that got busted up, the whole Fifth Avenue, Cartier and Microsoft. And next time it's going to be God knows what, my friends. Next time it's not going to be pretty. That's it, my friends. It's really just a choice. Free your mind and your ass will follow. Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. Remember that you left slavery, my friends. That's it. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.